If you're like some 40% of Americans, you're probably listening to this on your commute to work. If you're a white woman, you might be commuting to a job where you make about 82% of what a male employee is making. Mhm. Like most things in this country, it's worse, of course, if you're a woman of color. Still, in 2024, Black women tend to make 70% and Hispanic women 65% of a male counterpart's salary. So, yeah, I do have some serious choice words for people who have used equal pay for equal work as a rallying cry for decades, and yet more than 60 years after the Equal Pay Act was signed, this is still our reality. And because I'm feeling quite spicy today, let me add insult to injury. I think it's an oxymoron to call someone a working mom. I think all moms are working moms. Some just also work a job outside the home in addition to the job of being a mom. But guess what? In addition to raising your own children, which pays $0 and 0 cents and offers zero health insurance, women's pay tends to go down when they have kids, even though men generally get a bump in pay when they become dads. Make it make sense. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest today is actor Mackenzie Davis, who you love from Station 11, Halt and Catch Fire, and the new film Speak No Evil. We talked about how it took her until the final season of Halt and Catch Fire to receive equal pay with her male co-stars. And while each industry has specific rules on parity, we know we can do better all the way around. Plus, she's a fellow Canadian and a fellow baker. So please, you must bear with our Toronto talk, our Canada talk. It was important to our souls. So take a listen and make good choices. I'm so excited to meet you.
Me too.
Oh
I'm
my
such a big fan here. It
God.
feels very casual how I was just joining with technical difficulties and not focusing my attention on you right away. But I'm so excited to meet you. Thanks for having me.
I love when other people have technical difficulties because it makes me feel so much better about my own technical difficulties, which are numerous.
Girl, I've got tons. Just buckle up.
Oh boy. Oh boy. You know what? I was refreshing myself by looking at your resume, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, you've been in so many things that I love so much.
That's
Can we
nice.
I just think
That's a
you're
nice way to
great.
start.
First of all, my friends introduced me maybe like a year and a half ago or something. They were like, you have to watch Halt and Catch Fire. You're just so great as Cameron. Oh my God.
Thank you. That's so nice. I love that show so much. And it was such a surprise, big deal to me. And was something nobody really watched at the time, which is fine because it just felt like our little secret. But it's really been nice that people have discovered it over 10 years and gotten really into it. It's so cool.
So into it. The fans of that show are so passionate, and I include myself in that category. You know what else is very nice is that we're both Canadian.
Yes, my favorite thing. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Toronto. And
okay,
you grew up in
whereabouts in Toronto?
Kind of all over the place. I spent mostly Ronsonsville.
Ronsonsville is so nice. Was it always nice?
You know what? It is like a time capsule. It has not really. I mean, it's gotten a slightly hipper. The restaurants are a little bit nicer.
No, but it's very villagey.
Very villagey and very separate from the rest of the city. Its own little kind of secret place.
Yeah.
And every time I'm back in Toronto, I walk around Roncesvalles and everything is kind of the same. And I go, oh, if I move back to Toronto one day, I will live here. I would be called.
It's wonderful.
There. It's beautiful.
I was shooting a show in Toronto during 2020. Well, I guess 2021. Anyways, I started doing a lot of at-home baking and was making croissants from scratch, and I was making donuts from scratch. And there was a store in Roncesvalles that I bought a great Danish dough whisk and then a
Uh-huh.
huge balloon whisk from, and I
Ah.
love it there because it was like the only thing keeping me sane was baking.
Oh, you love to bake. I love to bake too. Ooh, is it like a meditation for you? Are you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I quite like baking because it's like not that creative in a way that I like. Like, I like having a set of rules that you can't
Hmm.
really divert from. And then within those, you can add your own flavors and stuff. But
Right.
I follow this newsletter called Kitchen
Ooh.
Projects. It's called Kitchen
Ooh.
Projects. I'll
I'm
tell
gonna
you about
write
it
it
afterwards.
down. Okay.
It's great where she does like a lot of like the sort of recipe development you do in a bakery and doing like, moisture levels and different
Mm.
types of flours and different bake times and different types of fats until she gets down to the recipe. But she includes all of the experimentation up to that point. So you have like all of this data to read and
Oh,
then the like perfect way to make the recipe. And there's something about how like strict baking is that I really like.
yes. I share your love of kitchen science. And then the result is like after all this chemistry that you've done and after all this like this perfect alchemy, you get to eat warm croissants that you made
I
yourself with
know.
jam.
I know.
What?
And to see them like develop and be like, oh, okay, so that's what
Yeah.
lamination is. And this is, I don't know, I feel like you learn so much in the process and like really
Yes.
respect the thing. I'm actually not that great of a cook or a baker, but I like being like an amateur who wants to do better. I thrive in those sorts of environments.
Me too. I love to have an expert tell me how to do
Yeah.
something. And then the job is just to follow like the journey
Yeah.
of they just teach you how to do it. And then you're like, oh, I think I get it now. Like it's all those
Yeah.
connections. It gets you out of reality a little bit. Like it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's relaxing, like prayer or something like that. It's like going
No,
to
I feel the
church, but
exact same way. That's how I use cooking and baking is I'm on a job right now that's like a 6-month job.
uh-huh.
We're shooting in Scotland for a long time.
Okay.
And I just like the first thing I do when I go to a new place is buy like a full pantry. Like I get all my condiments, I get everything because when I finish work, even if I'm
Yeah.
really tired, I want to like cook a meal, prepare my lunch for the next day, like kind of take
Right.
care of myself, like learn my lines while I'm walking around the kitchen and having this sort of triangulation of a different task that keeps me focused on the like cooking is the way into learning my lines or preparing for the next day. Like the diversion from the job at hand lets me
Hmm.
focus more on the task, you know?
I don't want to say that this is a Canadian thing, but there is something like about, I do think that, okay, I'm going to say something controversial that people out in the world might not agree with, but I do think like in Canada, like growing up, you grew up in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, yeah.
West Coast. We are food culture, farmers markets is very much a part of life. It's like, I feel like when I came to the United States 20 odd years ago, people were like, I don't know how to eat. I never cook. I just store dishes in my stove. And I was like, what? How do you
Yeah.
not make food for yourself? It's so fundamental. I don't get it.
I know it was so, I mean, I've never thought about it being a Canadian thing, but I love claiming things because we don't do a lot of
I
that.
know.
So
It's,
that's
it's
ours.
wholesome. It's wholesome.
But yeah, my mom, like, she's a businesswoman, but she cooked dinner for us every night and made us cook dinner with her and learn how to
Yeah.
cook alongside her. And it was like a inescapable and pleasurable part of growing up. Like we were
Right.
constantly making meals and planning the next meal and like loving to eat. So it's still, yeah, a
I
real
love that.
pleasure.
I like that you take care of yourself that way. It's primal. It's just primal. It's
It
cool.
is. You get infantilized a lot as an actor.
Hmm.
Like you just do because it's really efficient for the machine for you to have your food taken to you,
Hmm.
someone to take you to the bathroom. Like you regress a lot because
Right.
the machine is organized that way to like have you do your part and no other parts. But I
Right.
bristle against that. So it's really important for me to like not go on a job and suddenly be like goo goo gaga.
I need a bottle of my
Yeah.
special smoothie.
Yeah.
So the premise of this podcast is about the choices. It's kind of like a starting point, even though we've already really started quite a bit. I love to talk about the choices that people make and like kind of like the big ones and the little ones and just talk about your relationship to like are you a decisive person? Are you good at
Mhm.
making choices for yourself? Do you know yourself? Have you always known yourself?
I'm very decisive and very
Mm.
impulsive in a way that hasn't fully been a negative thing yet, although there have been periods of like regret sometimes or just a lot of discomfort. I
Hmm.
make big decisions on a
Hmm.
whim and follow through with them, and that mark, and I like am quite addicted to that feeling.
Really? Once you've made a decision, are you like, and even if it's like a big swing and you're like, God damn, do you ever get halfway through and you're like, I shouldn't have, I don't like
Yeah,
it?
I think it's more that I'm really impulsive, but I'm also really organized. So
Okay.
I during the pandemic I moved to London,
Hmm.
truly just like decided one day, but then I was also aware of all of the sort of, procedures I needed to go through to do it. Like I needed to pack up my entire house, I needed to sell the things I couldn't pack up, I needed to put all of that stuff on a freighter, I needed to sort out a storage locker, I
Hmm.
needed to sort out like there's all of these tasks that I think sometimes blind me to the implications of the decisions that I've made
Okay.
because I'll just get wrapped up in the task and then I'll arrive somewhere and be like, "Now, how the fuck did I get here?" Because I've just been like focused on the minutia.
Why am
Yeah,
I in London? What's
yeah,
happening?
quite a bit that happens.
Oh my God, that's so funny. You love a task. Are you like
Yeah,
a, do you have systems? Do you have, are you a list keeper? How do you organize your brain?
I say I'm a list maker, but not a list keeper. I can make a list all day.
All right.
I don't know where that list goes,
Okay.
but I can write down things and like excavate my brain, and
Okay.
just the making of the list is quite helpful. Um, I've had people remark on how insane it is watching me pack a suitcase and how
Oh,
disorganized it, but then also walking through my house and seeing that like sewing supplies is, labeled with a label
labeled.
maker on small boxes, and I have like all my closets organized. So I'm a mix of, big dreams and poor execution sometimes.
Are you in a, like, are you, there's like a madness to the way that you pack a suitcase, but is it actually in your brain very organized? Like when you open it, you're
Absolutely
like,
not.
no, it's
No.
just chaos.
No, it's just pure chaos. I just think
Okay.
like both things exist at the same time. It's not like a really efficient system,
Mhm.
my brain, but it's but it's mine and I love her.
Oh, were you like that as a child too? Were you like, I'm gonna organize my toys are in, color coded bins.
Yeah, I remember I like grew up in a really healthy family. We
Hmm.
could have like one special treat on Fridays. So when Halloween came, I was like obsessive about the candy and hoarding the
Okay.
candy and organizing the candy and just sort of itemizing my wares. And then like I had a briefcase, like an old leather briefcase that I would keep all my candy in and sort of mark as it ran down. But I guess to the things most precious to me, I keep track of them. But yeah, I don't know if I was that much as a
I do
kid,
like
other
that you.
than
I like that you kept your candy in a briefcase. That feels professional.
it was a doctor's case. Yeah, it
That's
was like
great.
folding had pockets. It did feel professional.
That's my
It's one of my most
medicine.
like tactile memories.
Oh my God, that is adorable. Is there a choice that you could look at, from, and you don't have to pick the biggest one, or just what comes to the top of your mind as something that really changed your life in a way that was unexpected, maybe?
I was trying to think about this before because I know the conceit of this podcast and what we were going to be
Yeah.
talking about. And the big one, like I do have big. I mean, when I was in university, I took a semester off to model, and I went to Europe to model
Oh.
and like truly hated it. Was so bad at it, like binge ate, like hated it, got like a lot of eczema. Like all the external signifiers of I'm miserable were there, but it was also felt like this great adventure, and
Mm-hmm.
there was all the sort of signifiers of something really romantic in this journey that I was on at 21, but I was just sort of
Right.
lonely and sad, and really didn't like being looked at in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went to see my childhood friend who's an actress, um, that I have known since I was 3 years old, and she was in a play at the Royal Vic, was a member of the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in London. And I went to see her in this play, and I remember just like bawling in the theater because the play was good, but also just this like seeing somebody who I'd been in school plays with, and she was just doing the thing I always wanted to do. And still I was going to university, but knew that that's what I was going to do eventually. But it was
Okay.
such an immediate like relief against what I was actually doing at that time.
Right.
And yeah, it was like a very significant sort of night. And then we went out for drinks afterwards and talked. And I remember I just made this decision to like get back into school as soon as possible, work through the summers, fast track my degree, and then go to theater school in New York, and then blah, blah, blah. I'm really
Mm,
happy I went to New York because I got a visa and I got to work in the States. And when I graduated from theater school, I got a job that I needed to have a visa for. And then I, went to LA, and then I got Halt and Catch Fire. So there's this like tumble
right.
of things that happened because I was miserable and receptive, I guess.
Ah, that's great. So it's funny that you were being observed, but didn't like the way in which people were observing you. They do like people watch you now, but they see you in a way that is comfortable and exciting for you.
I think there's something about being in motion. Like there's
Hmm.
something about stillness that's like, and I would watch girls, like it's such a skill to be a good model. Like it's
Right.
really balletic and beautiful, and it's a skill and like a gift that you have a face that has the right
Hmm.
angles, but it requires movement at the right moments, and stillness in the right moments, and just sort
Right.
of a body awareness that I've never ever had.
Hmm.
And it always felt like the litmus, or not litmus test, but there was this sort of threshold between beautiful or not beautiful that was the success of what I was
Right.
doing. And that felt so important to, I mean, I still have this taking red carpet photos and stuff. It's so like low stakes, but also feels high stakes that,
Right.
maybe I'll do a bad, I don't know. It's like quite regressive, the feelings I have about getting my picture taken, that I'll disappoint people. And yeah, I just didn't like how being still and having someone like capture that stillness in the right way was how I could be successful. It made me feel really
Right.
passive. That being said, I think there's models that are, true,
Oh, there's people who are incredible at it. And it's
yeah,
like, you're
yeah,
like, oh, wow, you're really built to demonstrate a different way of life, or you're just built for this exact thing
yeah,
in such
yeah.
a
Or
special
someone like
way.
Zendaya, where you're like, oh, you're
Right.
like an artist with your body and you can do both things. But
Right.
um, yeah, it was felt really binary to me, and a type
Right.
of like binariness that I had no control over.
Oh God, red carpets. My God, they're so
Kill
stressful.
me. Oh my
They're
God, I
so
have one tonight. I'm so
Oh no.
nervous.
Oh.
I
So
know.
people don't it's so understandable when people kind of like in the outside of the entertainment industry think they look really fun from the outside looking in, but when you're in it, they're very much work. It's
the
work.
it's work, and there's actual like, not to make too big of a deal out of it, but it matters. Like there are
Yeah.
images that are recirculated of you being the like public version of yourself. And
Yeah.
I don't know anyone that's comfortable with it, but I do know people who've sort of mastered the performance side of it. And
Hmm.
because I've always wished that I had a stage name, and that like that part of my life, that I feel like I would be a different person if when I did red carpet stuff, it wasn't tied to like who I am authentically. It was like this
Right.
other character, but it's not. Like it's my name that people say when they want to take my picture, and it just feels sort
Yes.
of like I don't quite know how to engage with it in a way that serves like the me master and the like
Right.
photograph master.
Like it's hard when they're because everybody's shouting your name and you're like, where do I look? Oh God.
Yeah,
There's too
yeah.
many people. When I was doing my television show, I had these two women, stylist team, Erica and Erin, and they were incredible. And they were like always trying to give me tips. They were like, okay, here's the strategy. They're like, we
Tell
know
me, what
you.
is
They
it?
were like, we know you hate this. And I was like, yeah, I can't do it. I'm like, I would sweat. I would be like all day, a mess, a mess. And they were like, just try it with your hands. It just make it look like you're just sewing, just sewing thread into a hem. So it's just like you're just like, just imagine that you're sewing with your fingers. And every time you imagine that you're sewing with your finger, you're just like doing some hand embroidery. It looks
What do
very
you mean, like
natural.
doing
Yeah, it's
this?
just like kind of like, you're just kind of focusing on your hands
Oh,
and you're
that's
just like,
nice.
oh, and your hands kind of make this nice shell shape and you're not even thinking about it. And then you're sort of like making your little stitches with your fingers. And then
Oh, that's beautiful.
it's just like really pretty and elegant. And then they
I'm
were
gonna
like,
try that
try
tonight.
it. And then they were like, and stick one leg out. I'm like, okay.
It's that. It's sticking one leg out, but I'm
One
like,
leg.
but I'm
Oh,
uncomfortable and I don't know where my center of gravity is. And my
I
body is long and I feel like I'm gonna fall over at any moment. And heels, I am not used to them. Anyways,
know. Mm.
who
Oh
cares? But
God.
it's just it's a funny part of this.
It's just a part of what it is. It's like a separate
Hmm.
beast. You are
Hmm.
so impossible. And I think in a great way, you're so impossible to typecast. You kind of like do so many, you have such interesting, this is a long way to say, I think you have incredible taste.
Oh,
How
that's so nice.
you do though, how do you kind of decide what you want to do or like what is your approach to, because I assume people send you lots of different scripts and you kind of read them. How do you make those decisions for yourself?
I think it's something like going through different relationships, and with each ensuing relationship you want the thing that you didn't have in the last one. And it's
Right.
not a negative thing, but I'm like, oh, I've done this sort of feeling, or I was like sated by this experience, so I
Hmm.
want this sort of experience. Like you're kind of mending the thing that you longed, or you're filling the hole that you longed for in your last relationship, and then you
Hmm.
go and find that other thing. And then it's just like so random. I don't know. I maybe there's an actor I want to work with, maybe it's the director, and maybe it's a script. Hopefully it's all three, but
Right.
sometimes it's just I want to be able to talk about something a year from making it and not feel like an asshole and like a liar. Like I want to
Right.
stay, and I have, I love reality TV, and I love like really sort of stupid, campy movies. And I also love, sort of highbrow things, but it's not like the taste is one sort of elevation. It goes all up and down. I just want it to
Right.
be something that I would watch or think is cool, or a person that I think, I did a Terminator movie.
Yeah.
I didn't really grow up with them. I don't have a relationship to that film franchise, but there's also moments in your life where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be like, of course, like a career
Right.
is not so precious that you shouldn't do the things that you'll, be happy that you had that chapter in your life on your deathbed. Like I'd like to
Right.
do sort of experimental, fun things that you only do once in a life.
Right. Right. You're
Um,
like, why wouldn't I get buff to do
so
something
buff,
like
and yeah.
so buff? That seems so hard.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's
Oh,
like what I imagined Bruce Willis was like as a movie star. Like it's that kind of like
right.
being a movie actor. Um, so I don't know. I feel like that wasn't a cohesive answer. Basically, I have no idea, and it
No
always feels like
idea.
a crapshoot. Yeah.
Well, I do. Well, anyways, the things like Station 11 is so great. It's so good. And you're so
Oh,
great and it's beautiful. It's funny to, okay, look, can we just talk about getting buff one more second? Because I
yeah,
once talked to,
absolutely. If you think I dropped that hoping to move on from it quickly, you're very wrong.
it's this whole podcast is about, it's just called Getting Buff
Yeah,
with
good.
Sam
It's
B.
just
And it's
workout
just
tips.
tips. It's just workout tips. I once had a conversation with John Cena and he was like, I
Hmm.
haven't had a slice of pizza in 8 months and I
Hmm.
really want one. And I was like, a single slice of pizza in 8 months? And he was like, no. He was like, the discipline that is required for me
It's
to
hell.
look, it seems like hell.
I will say that it healed, I guess exacerbated and healed, but like healed some like body issue stuff for me, because I
Okay.
realized I could work out and did every day for 6 days a week. While shooting in the months beforehand, I like had a trainer that traveled with me if I needed to go to other places for work. I was
Right.
training for so long.
Oh,
My body completely changed. If I had a cappuccino, if I had
right.
milk and some salt or a glass of wine, the water retention that came back made me look 30 pounds heavier. So
Oh
there was
my
just this like
God.
realization that the lifestyle required to have a, a like cut and somewhat
Yeah.
idealized, I mean, a type of idealized body is not worth it. It's hell, and it is
Hell.
so much better to have a soft body and like endless pleasure.
Ah,
I feel like it really healed something that happened to me like through modeling and just being a teenage girl.
right.
Where I was like, oh, okay, so I can have this body and I'll be miserable forever, or I can have the body I have and have so much fun all the time.
Have so much
Case
fun.
closed.
I feel like that is a message that people don't hear quite enough. Like, especially young kids. Like, I have teenagers, and I was like,
Hmm.
guys, gather around the fire pit of mommy. Let me tell you
Hmm.
something. In most cases, not every case, but in most cases, if you have like a very firm tanned six pack, it means you are not living life fully,
Yeah.
and you can never eat a pastry. Like
It's not even pastry. It's like, I mean, the
anything.
restrictions were I was just eating unseasoned meat and steamed vegetables
Oh,
all the time. I mean, to be
mm,
fair, I would have moments of being strict on it. Like there's like a
sure.
nude arrival scene, and in the weeks leading up to it, I was always on like a real strict diet.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't. I would rather look worse and have a glass of wine on the weekend, or like
Right. Right.
some pleasure in my life after working out every single day.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
Well, yeah, when we see those, especially guys in movies, we're like, okay, to my son, that guy hasn't had a glass of water in 36 hours.
Yeah,
He's so
yeah.
thirsty. His
He's
body's
so thirsty, and he's
shutting
gonna
down.
drink like a bottle of wine for some reason right before they shoot because that will cut him even more. Fact
What?
check that. There's something in what I'm saying that's
Oh,
true, and it might not be 100%, but there's something about having like like an alcoholic beverage or like a bunch of salt right before you perform that
dr-
like shrinks you up even more. But
it dries up your remaining moisture. Oh
exactly,
my
you just go
God.
fully arid,
Oh, that's
as
awful.
God intended.
As God wanted, yes. Do you watch your own projects? Do you like that process? Or once you're done with something, do you walk away?
I don't like the process. I often feel it's rude not to watch it
Okay.
because you work with somebody for a long time and then the director finishes this thing that they,
Right.
worked with you on and then worked in this other sort of category of filmmaking on, I mean, in post-production, and they want to show you. And I just always feel a bit weird about being like, no, I'm fine.
Is it Are you watching Speak No Evil?
Hmm.
I can't wait to see it.
Oh, cool.
Looks
I hope you do.
it looks very creepy. The original film is very dark.
The original film is very dark.
It
Ours is a
is.
little bit different, and it's a different type of darkness. But
Yes.
yeah, more sort of catharsis, I think.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That I will enjoy that.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. And it's
Well.
not like a really scary. It's mostly sort of squirmy and like,
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
not because it's gross, because the situations are just sort of cringy and uncomfortable.
Right. Like, can we talk about *Halt and Catch Fire* for one sec?
Hmm.
Because it in the final season, you and the other female lead,
Carrie Bichet,
yeah, she's so good.
she's so good.
She's
She's
really
an
good.
incredible actress. I really, yeah, just
Oh
thought she
wow,
was incredible.
she's really good. You finally get like achieve equal pay with the men, even though
Hmm.
you were, arguably the lead of the show. I think that it is wild that it's still a conversation to be had about
Hmm.
equal pay. I'm curious if you think it's harder for women to talk to each other about what they make or to talk to men about why they should make more money or be on the same plane.
I'm the rudest person on the planet. I talk about money all the time.
Great.
If anybody asks me what I make, I'll tell them. I ask everybody what they make.
Mhm.
The hard thing about the the industry that we work in is that it still operates on like a quote model. So
Right.
I've had male co-stars that have a much higher quote than me, and I've been able to leverage my pay off of theirs to get much closer to their quote than I would be
Okay.
before. And it's not a good system, the quote model, because it means that if men are always getting paid higher, their quote will always be higher. And then there's
Right.
always an argument for why you shouldn't get paid the same as them because they have a higher quote, but because, you know what I mean? It's like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cyclical argument.
It's just a very difficult and awkward conversation and very like, and as you say, very structured and kind of, it's hard to fight that structure especially also now with like streaming, and it's so complicated. Negotiations are so complicated, and
Yeah.
people are very uncomfortable talking about money.
And I
Mm,
think people feel a relationship to their quote that is earned, and like a bit of a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of argument of like, well,
right,
I earned this and I should have this thing, and like, why don't
right,
you earn this much if you want to earn this thing? And it is divorced from reality, and like historical precedent. But
right,
I do find people can be quite sensitive and defensive about their quote and what it means, like how it reflects on their value as an
right,
actor in an industry that's like, constantly reminding you of your dwindling value. For
right.
everybody, you're a
Oh
temporary
yeah,
player, and as soon as the thing you're on is over, you might not work again. I mean, that's the mindset that's sort of beat into you from early on, and it takes work to kind of negotiate yourself out of that mindset where you're like, no, I'm going to keep working and I'm not scared.
yeah.
Is sort of like an affirmation you have to do.
Right. I'm not scared and I don't care about the business, and
Yeah,
business is business. It's hard not to take things personally,
yeah.
and it's hard that there are like tiered lists of actors. It's
Weirdly, I've always found that really comforting because it's like, I mean, actors are human stocks
you're
that
right.
that
Right.
people are investing in or making sort of like futures. They're like
Mhm.
betting on what's going to happen. So they're like, oh yeah, you deserve to make this much because I think that like we'll recoup our investment when the movie comes out
Right.
because of this, or based on past earnings, or you have something that's about to come out, so we're going to like
Right.
roll the dice and let you be the lead. So it's sort of so impersonal to me that like you're just using this sort of calculation that isn't based on like talent or like how lovely you are as a person or this or this or this.
Right.
It's like and then as I'm saying this, there's also like entrenched sort of racism and sexism and all of the isms within that system that are really personal. But
Mhm.
I guess I find the distance from the emotional part of the
Right.
work quite comforting, where I'm like, all right, fine. You didn't think I could make you guys that money. I don't know. I've never made like $1 billion on a movie before, so
Right.
fair enough. I'll go do something else.
Right, right, right. Is there something that you have you directed? Have you directed? Would you?
I've just directed a short film, but I would love to direct more.
Mm.
I feel
Oh,
like every
you
time I talk about this, I'm like, I just gotta get writing, but
I
I'm not really a writer, so it's just finding something. I don't. I want to do very specific things. Like I
mhm.
don't want to direct. Um, Sounds so like I'm implying that some people do, but I'm not just interested in directing to do it. Like it would just have
Right.
to be something really really special. I love the thing that I made, and I look forward to making another thing that I love as much. That I'm like,
Right.
oh yeah, I want to be in conversation with this for like 2 or 3 years or 4 years.
Right.
Like this matters to me, um, and the matter can just be it's like so silly and it thrills me, or it can be whatever, any number of things that like stick in your meat.
It seems very clear to me from talking to you, just from this brief conversation, that you do have like the heart and constitution of a director.
Oh,
Does
thanks,
that?
Sam.
It's just sort of the next thing will be so like figuring out the story that you want to tell.
I felt when and it was like a 5 day shoot with like so much prep, but I
Hmm.
felt like the thing I miss in acting sometimes is the your brain firing on all cylinders. You're
Hmm.
sort of isolating the parts of your brain or your body that are used, and that can be great, but it is isolated. And I love directing because I got like such a like list part of brain and
Right.
problem solving part of brain and like adaptive, problems come up and you figure out a way through it, and
Right.
that's deeply creative to figure out how to problem solve. um and this like caretaking part, like I felt
Right.
really maternal in a way that was really really satisfying and like nourishing for me, and I just felt like the creative relationships I built in this one short film are so much more enduring and like intimate than the ones
Right.
that I normally get from being an actor, which feels a little bit more transactional for me.
Do you feel like when you're on a set that you're actually, maybe even without even knowing it, that you're observing kind of like how the set is run and going like, oh, I would tweak this, and I think this is
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because I'm in such like close contact with a lot of different departments because I work really
Hmm.
closely with hair and makeup and I work really closely with costume and I work really closely with the camera department and with
Right.
sound and then the director. Like there's an sort of intimate relationship between you and these different departments and you do see kind of what people need and when their job is being like handicapped and when it's allowed to flourish and what people need to like really invest in a thing and how good it
Hmm.
feels when everyone feels sort of respected and invested. I'd say
Right.
my skill set is not the technical, like I'm not one of those people that's behind the DP asking about lenses. I should be. It'd be great to know. It's just my brain does not absorb that information as much as the sort
Right.
of like emotional infrastructure of a set and how like that produces efficient storytelling and like lovely days.
Right. Well, I guess I'm just reminded of Sarah Polly, who I love, I think is
Oh,
incredible, right?
our hero. Have
And
you met
like,
her? Do you know her?
oh my God, I met her and I just there weren't enough words to say. I especially appreciate how she builds a set and builds a working environment that is so intentional.
Yeah.
And I love to meet people who I feel would like build an intentional place or create an intentional space for art where people are feel honored and they feel respected and they feel
Yeah.
like they're contributing and everybody's kind of invested in it. Like having skin in the game.
Yeah. But also something I really learned, which maybe you as a, you know, business lady,
Hmm.
you know, head of company, tell me when to stop describing what you do. But and as a Canadian, I find that my impulse to make sure that everybody feels like seen and heard and that like all
Hmm.
options are on the table is also something I had to sort of mute a little bit. That it's actually, and I know this from working with directors, is that when people are too collaborative and too open to any idea,
Right.
you feel quite unsafe. Like there's something
Yes.
so nice about working with somebody that has a really clear vision, who
Hmm.
can problem solve and adapt and change course if need be, but that isn't open to everybody's input and that it could constantly change because then it feels like,
Yes.
well, why am I investing in this thing if you don't even know what it is? And I learned that in sort of pre-production because I was really like, but guys, I mean, if you have an idea, I want to take the best idea, so you chime in.
Right.
And my producer took me aside and was like, you should just, you know, hold your space and know that what
Right.
your ideas are good and it doesn't actually help for all ideas to be on the table. And it was such a helpful note to be like part of creating a sort of safe, really generative, creative space
Hmm.
is having like clarity of vision and executing it with like kindness and love, but with
Right.
like specificity.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I had to learn that too.
I
That's
bet.
a hard one. It's like learning saying yes when the yes is the right thing to do, but also learning how to say no and like
Yeah.
create a limit and then so that we can move forward. You have to be able to move forward.
And not coding opposing opinions or no's as like acts of violence. That
Right.
like it's okay to have an opinion that differs from somebody. There's all like if you have an opinion, it's going to differ with someone's, and that's not like combative. It's just two sort of, you know, opposing forces, and that
Right.
can be constructive.
Where do your own tastes lie? Like what do you read? What do you watch? What are your appetites, I guess, content-wise? You said you like reality show. I mean, I like a variety of things too, but what are you watching right now? What are you
Well, I was
into?
recently watching Selling Sunset, which I
Oh,
really
yes,
like. Just
right.
absurd. There's a dog funeral this season that I suggest everyone
Fanta
check out. Like
fantastic.
high art, full camp. Never seen anything like it. Like whatever they're doing is working perfectly. I like characters on reality TV a lot because I think there's this like first and foremost, I just like it. I'm not trying to create like an intellectual distance from it. It satisfies me and I really like it.
Yeah,
On top of that, I think there's an interesting like doubling of performance on reality TV where everyone's like wise enough to know what they're doing and how they're doing it, but they're not necessarily like great actors, so they're not fooling the audience. So you can see the the like seams around the performance in a way that's
Mm-hmm.
quite revealing and I think really interesting. Because I've been working for the last 6 months, I don't watch a ton of movies when I
No.
work because I just want to like kind of put my brain in like an
You're just like, I want to
incubator when I get
eat.
off of work. Yeah, I want to
I want to
chill
eat
out.
my thing.
I read a lot generally, and then I read a lot when I'm working. So I'm reading Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor right now, which is
Hmm.
great. I read a lot of Janet Malcolm this summer,
Hmm.
who I'd never read before, but just like read in the Freud archives and then sped through a bunch of her books. I just like being in a book as much as possible. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I like, yeah, I think it's a nice invisibility cloak when I'm at work and I need to like decompress and
Yes.
be kind of alone in a space that's where I'm still available to people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my tastes are so base for television when I'm at work that I really need to have something else that like goes into my system.
I always tell people that I used to, like, when I toured a lot, I would
Hmm.
always watch the same thing. Like, I would get to a hotel room, I would put my bag down, like, unpack my bag a little bit, and then immediately put on Lady Dynamite, which is
What's Lady Dynamite?
it's a Netflix
Oh, it's
show with
Maria.
Maria Bamford,
Oh
who
my God, I've
is,
never seen it, but I love her.
oh my God, you must. It is like it's kind of what you're describing. It's like I can watch it on a total autopilot. I always see something different in it. It
Yes.
always makes me laugh or at least go, "What?" Like
Yeah.
I'm total entertainment.
Oh my God. You know
I
what
don't know
else
how
is
to
like
make it.
this?
What?
Have you ever seen What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show?
Yes,
Oh my
I
God,
love it.
that's the best comedy I've ever seen in
Yeah.
like I've seen it so many times.
Yes.
Exactly what you're saying. I watch it on autopilot as comfort food, but
Mhm.
anytime I watch it, I'm like bowled over by the density of jokes. It's
Yes.
really like I guess all shows are like this where the more you know the characters, the more pleasure you derive from their interactions. But the characters in this and their backstories are so rich and like
Yes.
rewarding to be familiar with that I love it so much. I think it's the best show on
So
television.
much. And because they're like hundreds of years old, they have hundreds of years worth of stories in their back
I
pockets. They can
know.
say
And lore,
anything.
it's so
Lore.
wonderful.
It's one of those shows. That is one of those shows where every time I watch it, I go, I'm just jealous of it. Like,
Yeah, I
I just
know.
wish that
Like
I
you guys wouldn't want me to
made
come around,
this.
would you? Yeah.
Do you need like a 54-year, do you need like a perimenopausal
Yeah.
vampire on
Couple of
your,
blondes. Hmm? I see a real shortage on blondes on the show.
you know? Oh my God, it was really fun talking to you. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
That was Mackenzie Davis, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. She even asked me to, okay? She was talking about how people fast before big movie scenes where they need to look incredibly buff. And then maybe sometimes they chug a ton of wine or salt, and it makes them look even more defined. She wasn't sure. And I have to say, this is the first time I'm not so sure either. I couldn't find a good answer. But, I mean, wine is usually a good idea, right? Anyway, thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee. See you next week for some more choice words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. The show is produced by Tzvia Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Josh Richmond. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on X and Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.